Hello there, long time no see. You're probably wondering, who is this guy who I've accidentally subscribed to months ago? I've no idea what he does or what his videos are about. Let me quickly remind you. I've got a 1987 Saab 900 Turbo with Trionic management. I've also got a 1981 UAZ 452, which is a Russian four-wheel drive van, and that's got, currently getting fitted to it, is a Saab 2.3 Turbo. And I've got this, which is a 1968 Comma Wanderer, that has a Saab 2.3 Turbo fitted to it. I've also got a Reliant Scimitar, that's got a Saab 2.3 Turbo fitted to it. And then my last video, which seemed to do pretty well, is this Triumph Dolomite 1300, and that is 100% not getting a Saab 2.3 Turbo fitted to it. Does any of that ring a bell? If you're one of the 2 or 3 people who used to watch my videos quite frequently, you may be wondering, Adam, where have you been? So a quick recap, me and Rowena only moved to this house back in April. It's over 100 miles away from where we used to previously live, so that does mean a new job for the likes of me. Rowena gets to work from home, so that's not too bad. Then there's all the upheaval that moving house entails, decorating rooms which don't even need decorating, and all that sort of stuff. Worse though, for me, for sure, is that I had to move the workshop. The workshop was something I rented back in Somerset. Now luckily it's in the garden. Unreal. So the workshop didn't get moved until, or the workshop move wasn't really completed until I'd say 2 weeks ago. Last of the stuff came in August, but the likes of my 2-post ramp couldn't go into the ground because the concrete was too thin, so we had to, me and the father-in-law Jim, big thanks to him, we dug out the existing concrete and made new footings for the 2-post ramp. That's now fitted. All these little jobs which have been really time consuming. I've shied away from making videos of that sort of stuff because I'm totally new to it. It would make terrible videos. Just to open myself up to all sorts of like legal battles in the future where people would look back and go, ah, that's why your house caught fire, because you cable tied all the wire in together. So I'm not going to do it. So the 2-post lift is in, the big fat UAZ is sat on it now. Absolutely brilliant to be able to get it back on the lift. I've just dropped the fuel tank on this because I need to make a fuel system for it. That's one of the things it needs next before it can run. You can see area on each post, 1.2 meters by 1.2 meters. And then we've dug it down 270 mil. The ramp manufacturer, when I bought it, said the 6-inch of concrete is the minimum to mount it in. This had 4-inch, so we dug it down 270 mil. What's that, like 11 inches? And then we've sunk the ramp down slightly. We've plasma cut plates, stud work, rebar, mesh rebar. It's in there. It's bloody in there. And what we've done is that there used to be like a little hump because there's cables and pipelines that run between each post. I didn't really realise how much it was going to be a pain the last time I installed this in the previous barn. But that there is right in the way. It's right in line with the gearbox on pretty much anything rear-wheel drive you put on the ramp. So if you wanted to use a transmission jack to remove that, it's a nightmare because your transmission jack is inevitably straddling a big hump piece of metal. It's a pain, it's a pain. So what we've done, sunk it down just under 30 mil. Not an issue anymore. So there's been 2 very big additions to the Living My Boost Life stable, one of which I think you probably just saw in the background there. So let me tell you about this thing. This is a 2007 Mahindra FS254. It is a 25 horsepower compact tractor. It's 4-wheel drive. It's got a front loader on it. That was on it when I bought it. It's got forks. It's got an openable bucket. The forks are of more use to me. On the back, I've added a backhoe. So the idea is to do a bit of landscaping around. Here you can see some stuff getting moved around. It's going to be helpful for that kind of stuff. It's also going to be helpful for moving shit old vehicles which don't run in and out of the barn. Such an asset already. Me and Richard did some concrete in the other day, and just being able to move big bags of gravel from one side of the garden to the other, great help. Done it the van, done it the van, done it the van. Woohoo! Let me show you how many bloody levers it's got, right? So, opens the bucket, lifts the bucket, tilts the bucket, throttle, brakes for each individual wheel. They don't actually do that much, to be honest. They just really need looking at. 4 gears, hand throttle, forward and backwards. So yeah, you have the full amount of gears, forwards and reverse. 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. 2-speed PTO, which is the shaft on the back. High and low, which actually turns them 4-speed gears into 8 gears. 8 gears forward, 8 gears back. Handbrake. I think that's a diff lock. That lifts the arms up and down on the back. And then there's even more levers there, which I haven't even played with. Then there's this knob on the steering wheel, and then there's a big knob who sits right there. You're probably wondering what the other edition is. This one we keep in the house most of the time. So yeah, I'll just show you now. So we got this one back in October. It is... what is it again? It's one of the Mitchell brothers, we think. So this is Otto. He was born on the 3rd of October. £9 9 ounces. He's quite big. He's like the 98th percentile or something.
99 now.
99th percentile. He's over 17 pounds now.
Yeah.
But he's bloody
strong boy.
Yeah, he's bloody gorgeous. Covered in dribble.
Not photo ready, that's for sure.
Anyway, that's the long and drawn out update on what's been going on and why I haven't been doing too much on the projects. Back to the Dolomite. As you can see, the wheels are off it right now. I've just had them sandblasted. I've put a coat of primer on them. I thought I'd bought 4 tins of primer and 4 tins of silver paint. I hadn't. I'd bought 8 tins of primer. Lovely. So I'm waiting for the silver paint to turn up, and then they're going to get a lick of paint, and then I got fresh tyres to go on it. The battery, replaced that with a new one, so it starts up nice and easily. The carburetor linkage has given up the ghost. It's only plastic ends on that, so I'm going to order a new one of them. Today I'm going to whip this carburetor off, because as I've been topping the dashpot fluid up, I've noticed it's very seized and sticky inside that carburetor, so I'm going to pull it out, clean it all up, and refit it. Here it is, pulled off the manifold. Just a quick look. So it's 1.5 inches. So it's a HS4. I couldn't remember if they had 1.25 inches on the smaller Dolomites. Let's strip it down further. On an SU carburetor, you have the air inlet there. You have the choke mechanism on the side, which, as it operates, you can see the cam. It's not adjusted up properly on this, but it acts on the throttle. So this is your throttle. So the choke, as it comes down, it should open the throttle slightly, so you get that fast idle. And also on the bottom, that is your jet. That pushes the jet down, and it richens the mixture for cold engine running. Here's your throttle butterfly. On some SUs, you've got this little pop-it valve, and apparently what that does is when the throttle slams shut, high vacuum in your inlet manifold used to create some nasty emissions, I think it is. And I think that's a bypass to basically allow a little bit of air on high vacuum to get drawn into the engine to reduce emissions. I believe, I could be wrong. What I always got told about these is just either fit solid butterflies or solder them shut, because they can be a source for an air leak, and you'll never get your idle decent then. On the other side there we have the float chamber, and you can see where it feeds into the jet. And then the float chamber has got the float is, I left it on the car, but the fuel goes in. As the fuel level raises up, the float pushes up, shutting off the fuel supply. As the engine drinks it, the float drops down, allowing more fuel into this, and basically you've always got a constant level of fuel. Then what else do we have on this type of jet? This is called a wax stat jet, where it's got a piece of wax inside there, and as the temperature adjusts, it basically pushes like a thermostat. It adjusts it mechanical movement. It moves the jet up and down. And this was basically like a very early type of fuel enrichment or leanment, basically condition dependent, adjusting your fuel in. Much like a fuel injection car nowadays will adjust the fuel in as the engine gets hotter and colder. This was a early version of that. I say early, this is a 1981 car, there was plenty of fuel injected cars out then. Then back to the front, we have this inside. Now this is what I found is really stiff, right? It's freeing up a bit now, but basically as air rushes in, it creates pressure on the bottom of this, and it lifts it up against spring pressure. There's a spring in here, and there is oil in like a damper. And basically the needle on the bottom of it, which you can just about see in there, that is tapered and fits into your jet. So as airflow increases when you open the throttle, this raises up. The needle's tapered, pointier at the bottom than it is the top. So as the needle rises, you get more fuel out of the jet into the engine. So, right, I'm going to pull it down a bit further. So I pulled it apart further, and you can see the jet down the bottom. Now if I do the choke mechanism on the side again, so like that, pushing the jet down. If you look inside, it goes down like that. Stripping it down further, we have spring, this like a little spring clip on top. I've not experienced that before. Maybe because this is a lower mileage car and all mine are just missing it, but it doesn't come apart until you pull that little spring clip off. Got your little needle, which is like sprung loaded underneath to keep it central. Like I said, if you can just about make out, it's tapered. You can get different profiles of needles to suit whichever engine you've got. And then this, like I said, there was like a damper. It would thread into the top, then as it flies up, the damper would slow it down. It's freed up quite a bit now, but I'm just going to clean it all up and reassemble. Before I chuck it back together, I'm going to reset the carburetor essentially. As you can see, the jet inside is not sat flush with the bottom of the carburetor. It's like recessed. So what the manual says is wind this in all the way, this bottom nut. This is the jet adjusting nut. As you can see where that nut is positioned, drops the jet up or down. And because the needle is tapered, different position, the jet is on this needle, gives you more or less fuel at idle. Because you can only adjust the idle mixture on an SU. fueling mixture whilst it's running is done by the needle. Right, like all good YouTubers, I've just been Googling this so I can make a little video about it and make it look like I know what I'm doing. I half joke. Basically, what I knew, you adjust it so the jet sits flush with the bottom of the carburetor, this bit across here, and then you adjust it 2 flats down, and then that's like a good base setting to start with, right? But what I'm used to seeing when I've messed with SU carburetors before is the bit around it, either side of the jet. I'm used to that sitting flush with the bridge, and I was thinking, is that right? Is this down further than it should be? So I've taken it all apart, and it's good to see how it all goes together. It's this part which sits inside the carburetor in the bottom. It's not adjustable, it's just bolted in, and that's the way it is. I thought maybe there's different sizes of this, but it turns out it's actually apparently not important, and it doesn't matter if that's sat lower down. Anyway, a little bit of waffling about nothing. Let's carry on putting it back together. That goes down 12 flats, which is 2 turns. Right, let's bolt it back on. Carburetor is all bolted back on. I've just topped up the dash pot with some ATF. You need like a nice thin oil for that. Float chamber is empty, but it'll fill up pretty quickly. So I'm going to crank it and it's going to fire up pretty quickly, I reckon. Bit of choke.
It's been a while since I got this started last. It's been a week or two. I've been waiting for the wheels to come back with fresh tyres. They are here, ready to go on. I decided to fit electronic ignition. The engine wasn't running right last time I started it up. Misfiring, stinking of fuel, running like crap. Quite inconsistent as well. I don't believe it's the carburetor because that's all nice and clean and there's no fuel leaking out of it or obvious air leaks, so there's not too much that can go wrong with that. I believe it's the ignition. People always say about condenser and points, they're pretty crap and like from unreliable sources nowadays. A friend of mine, Junkyard Tom, I'm not sure if you've seen him on YouTube, he was telling me that back in the day, he used to go around scrap yards pulling all the old points and condenser off scrap cars because he was saying the old original stuff was better than the reproduction stuff that was available at the time. And being as the market is probably getting less and less for points and condenser, I'd imagine it is all junk. So anyway, electronic ignition, that's what I'm getting at. That is what is going on to ditch the points and condenser, and hopefully this thing runs right. Let's give it a go. Inside the distributor, we have the capacitor, which I've just unscrewed from there. And then we have the ignition points, and then a four-sided cam, or four-pointed cam on a four-cylinder. And it, as that comes around, it opens the ignition points, as so. If I can remember, as it opens, the coil then no longer gets fed, which then means the coil fires, I think, maybe? And then the capacitor, I think, just takes the load off the points, does it? Who knows? Anyway, capacitor, points coming off, and electronic ignition going in its place. Points and condenser out, then the existing screw holes, mount the sensor. This is like a little pickup ring. As you can see, it's got the points to line up with the 4 corners of that cam. Drop that on, and then chuck on a rotor arm. I'll chuck the new one on. Right, let's give that a go. Despite that jumping around on its mount a bit, that is so much better than it was. So yeah, happy with that. Sounded good, idle's a bit too fast. I'll sort all that out in a minute, but let's chuck these wheels on it then. Needs a little bit of fettling, but I'm going to call it there on this video because in the next video I'm going to be on a dyno, so I'll use that to set up the mixture at idle, and then we'll go from there. So catch me in the next one where let's see what this thing makes in the before dyno video. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.